David Dole covered this video. Now, the reason I'm going to his channel in order to play it for you is because this was pulled down on Twitter. So the clip that you're about to see was on MSNBC, on Rachel Maddow show, was a fill-in guest for Maddow. She's not there now, but the fill-in guest on Maddow talks to this guy, Michael McFaul. And Michael McFaul talks about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and starts to make some comparisons of who Vladimir Putin is like. So he shoved his foot directly in his mouth. MSNBC tweeted this and bragged about it like it was a good clip. And then after like a day up, or a few hours up, whatever it was, they had to go back and pull it down because of the ruthless backlash after, what this guy said. So let me go ahead and play this for you. Let me find the timestamp here. It's somewhere over yonder. Okay, let's watch.
Find while you're watching this clip. He is a professor in international studies in political science at Stanford. Check this out.
Jesus Christ.
And I want to just say one other thing. I was just on Ukrainian television just 30 minutes ago. Brave journalists, just like our team covering the war there in Kiev. And one of the commentators said something interesting about how horrific this war is. And remember, these are people who suffered under fascism, that fought the Nazis. As the Nazis came, and then the Red Army came back through. One of the Russian journalists said, there's one difference between Hitler when he was coming in and Putin. Hitler didn't kill ethnic Germans. He didn't kill German-speaking people. That's I think people need to remember that when we're talking about cities like Kharkiv and Mariupol and Kiev, there are large populations there, up to a third and sometimes as much to a half that are Russian speakers and are ethnic Russians. And yet Putin doesn't seem to care about that. He slaughters the very people he said he has come to liberate.
All right.
Indeed, David, indeed. There's also something else floating around. Somebody was saying that Hitler never used chemical weapons. The gas chamber guy never used chemical weapons? What, that doesn't count? Is that a loophole? What are you talking about? Of course he used chemical weapons. He was the chemical weapons guy, mass murdering people. Now, this guy McFaul says, again, he's supposed to know about history. He's supposed to be an expert. He's like, Hitler never killed ethnic Germans. So the implication is supposed to be Vladimir Putin is worse than Adolf Hitler because Vladimir Putin is killing his own people. He's killing ethnic Germans. And that's like, even worse than killing, quote unquote, the other. By the way, it's not. You shouldn't kill anybody, right? But the implication is it's what Putin is doing is worse because he's killing his own kind. At least Hitler didn't kill his own kind. That is quite possibly one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. Just stunningly ignorant. Hitler wanted to kill and kind of did kill everybody. The only people he didn't lay a glove on were the quote-unquote Aryans. So blonde hair, blue eyes, etc. But, millions of Jews were slaughtered. Everybody knows that. But then you also have disabled people, Roma, anybody who was LGBTQ. Like, the list is endless. Communists. So this idea, like, he didn't go after ethnic Germans. Well, on what planet? On what planet are you talking about? And also, I mean, can't you say that a lot of the Jewish people were ethnic Germans? Like, what, that it's never the case for them? It's astounding. What he's saying is astounding. It's absolutely astounding. And again, MSNBC and the Rachel Maddow show, they tweeted this out and quoted it. And it was like to brag about it. Be like, look at this great point that somebody on air made. And they left it up for a while. And everybody and their mother was like, are you kidding me? What are you doing here? And after sufficient backlash, they deleted it. And then this guy came out. At first, he doubled down. And then later on, he gave like a semi-apology. But it's amazing that this got on air in the first place. It goes to show you what happens during a war hysteria. Everybody's mind gets shut off. And what these people are doing is they're arguing backwards from their conclusion. Their conclusion is Vladimir Putin is the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. And so they think it's like a pithy and witty gotcha to be like, well, did you know he was actually worse than Adolf Hitler? You don't have to, do literal, Nazi revisionist propaganda in order to say that Putin is bad. Putin is bad on his own merits. You can make good salient points as to why Putin is bad, how Putin is bad, how, there's a number of stories where there's credible evidence that he basically murders the opposition party and journalists and deeply anti-gay and a classic authoritarian leader invading a sovereign country as he just did in Ukraine. Like, there's so many things you could point to that are real things. The blood and soil speech he gave when he announced the invasion about how, basically Ukraine is a fake state. It was ours before. It should be ours right now, and we're going to take it. You could talk about how a lot of this conflict has to do with natural gas, because there's natural gas just off the coast of Crimea and in western Ukraine and eastern Ukraine, and he probably wants that natural gas. He has, a petro state effectively. There's so many ways to go after him where it is accurate, but instead of doing that, they say dumb things that actually downplay the horror that is Adolf Hitler. And that's where they totally lose me and they totally lose everybody. It's not even, the claim is not even he's equally as bad as Hitler. The claim is he's worse than Hitler. That's the implication here. And that's just absolutely astounding, because another key difference, as we've talked about before, and I know some people get triggered by this, but they shouldn't, because what I'm saying is accurate. Hitler very clearly had global domination goals. Global domination goals. So he wanted to subjugate and oppress everybody. And he was working on that global domination thing, very clearly. He was on the path to that. Whereas Vladimir Putin, and all of these things are negative, they're terrible, they're bad, but we're talking about degrees of difference here, because that's what you're supposed to do if you're being honest, intellectually honest. The fact of the matter is, he has sphere of influence goals. That's what Vladimir Putin has. Now again, that's cold comfort to somebody living in Ukraine, or somebody living in another post-Soviet state, of course. So I'm not saying this to say it's good that doesn't get... No, it's bad. But obviously, world domination goals is an order of magnitude worse. So yes, even though Vladimir Putin is terrible and horrible and wrong and bad, Adolf Hitler, I think it's safe to say, is still way worse. Okay? Then again, if that triggers you, then that's your problem. That's not my problem. I'm just stating things I think are relatively obvious here. So, again, this guy's supposed to be the history guy, but it's this mania and this hysteria now, which is the same kind of thinking that leads to Russian cats being banned from cat shows, and Belarusian and Russian athletes being banned from the Paralympics, and Russian vodka being banned in stores, and this 20-year-old piano savant genius expert who's Russian now being kicked out of doing his shows. I mean, the list goes on and on. This is all part of that same thing, and I can't say enough bad stuff about it. This goes to show you, man. Propaganda everywhere, and narratives everywhere. And you have to try to rise above the fray and evaluate every claim from whatever source rigorously. Because, obviously, like on RT and Sputnik, they're weaving their own narrative and they have their own propaganda, and a lot of the stuff that's coming out of there now is psychopathic. But then you also have plenty of stuff in U.S. media, which is, it's effectively U.S. state media, where they're making the case of the Pentagon. They're making the case of the intelligence agencies. They're hyping up threats above and beyond what they actually are. And so you have to be, you have to have your wits about you when you go through this media landscape. And by the way, I'm not even saying that alternative media, new media, and independent media, we're the panacea. We're not. There's plenty of other issues in new media, like audience capture, people just sort of pandering to their audience and telling them what they want to hear instead of being totally objective and fair, and sometimes saying things that people don't want to hear. So you gotta have a media diet that's across the board and evaluate claims very carefully. And this is just an example right here of they really jump the shark and shit the bed. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.